Hey everybody, Bob Green here with Joe Kayser. We're going to talk this week about some painful reflections of people and technology. It was inspired by the use of AI for people, but this isn't about AI. This is about intentional use of technology for the sake of codifying, honoring the tradition in the family company or the company that behaves like a family, honoring that tradition and recognizing ways to build better processes for better outcomes in the how you do what you do with people. So I'm going to start this by talking about failure because that's where you learn a lot from. So the first failure many years ago with the family company who I worked with first, I was the new guy in the company, and there was a really smart CIO, and he thought it'd be great to digitize the customer experience, and so he spent a year building this tool, and it was all about the what. It was about what we're going to do to make this an electronic, easily accessible for people remotely in our company as well as remotely for our clients. And we never did talk about the how until the implementation, which is the how we do this. So it ended up being how we can please our customers as opposed to how we get this done. And as you might guess, the first day we turned it on, we turned it off within 2 hours because we weren't ready to use it. It wasn't that kind of bottom-up approach to say, how is this going to work for a person in our receiving area where they start with a customer experience? And so we turned it off and ended up being a lot of retrofitting. So Joe and I are going to talk about some better ways because you learn a lot from failure, and I did too. And we found our way through it, but we're going to talk about this. So Joe, you appreciate the technology. Unapologetically, your technology. I'm more on the people side. I like the technology too. So, and we're both process people. So let's talk about the process and what we learned, especially as we were talking throughout the week about understanding more of the how. Let's talk about the how.
Absolutely. And Bob, it's a great story, and I think everyone who's listening can relate to many battle scars, being earned through technology implementation, and but there's also a lot of victories, obviously, because we all use technology to get our jobs done.
Yeah.
And it's always it's learning from the battles, and but always rising up and learning, utilizing what we've learned, to make it better too. And as we were talking about that, that example, but many other examples, and as we're working with our clients, and trying to help them be better at what they do, it invariably comes back to why things failed, and there's many reasons, but I like to simplify things.
Right,
All
excellent.
I'm a simple
Excellent.
guy. All right,
There you go. Right.
It comes down to a breakdown between three main components. All right, there's people, there's process, what you do, and how you do it. And then the technology that's part of that. All right, but it's all three are critical for the success when you're trying to improve that process. And that process is simplified again. That's how your company delivers the value to the customer. All right, and the what is the ultimate delivery to what the customer gets. But what makes you special, because all your other competitors do the what's too. They deliver the what.
Right.
All right.
Right.
It's how you do it. It's how you it's how you deliver that that service or that product to your customer that makes you special. That's why the customer chose you. All right. And that's on us, as leaders, business owners, and to really lead the organizations on the how. All right, and constantly improve the how. All right, and that's going back to the the trinity of success, people,
Right.
process and technology. So that's where I spend a lot of time. Is when I grew up on the business side in corporate America, but since in the last 8 years, I spent time dealing directly with clients and helping them identify and really start with the process first.
So we both share this. Here's something you might be able to identify with if you've been through this, or maybe you're going through it, or looking into it regarding the how. I've worked with people, working with them right now. You know the people, Joe, who have those. We talked about this, the Post-it notes, right? I know how to do this, and I'm going to kind of keep the Post-it note. Back in the day, it was on that monitor on the desktop. Now it might be just on the desk. but it's that little note of how that one person knows, and they just know it. And so they're like a kind of like a hidden subject matter expert in this process. And we got to get that documented somehow because that's a really important step. And if it belongs to one person, we don't share it. And so that's something that's like this hidden knowledge in the company. And we talked about it even in something, and I've experienced, I'm working on this right now with, this, even if you're looking at the simple process of onboarding a client, maybe it's an artificial intelligence kind of a thing that automates some things that people shouldn't be doing because it's a task, it's not a job. And you want people to be more involved in how you serve people better. So don't make that task the job. Let's elevate people from that. But you've got to get that process right. And you can't have that person with a Post-it note who owns that Post-it. You got to get that out and document it and use the technology. So as we know, we got to get that plan together. How does this plan work? How do we get this done? And get the Post-it notes in a document so that we can engage with the technology and figure out what the right one is. But then as we're learning the technology or figuring it out, we're also building the process and the discipline that's not Joe's way or Bob's way, it's our way.
Yes.
This is the way, and this is how we do it. So
absolutely, and that's where, great point. And it's those Post-it notes, all right, with Bob or Mary. Those are actually bottlenecks in your service, and that's where you can break down, and that's where coming back around to yes, you're documenting it. You're actually it's that collaboration, and bringing that information together, and putting all those processes into play. And then you can reflect back and say, how can I improve upon it? All right,
right.
Where are the bottlenecks? Where do we drop? All right, but you got to have that visualization of it. In order to appropriately attack it, and how you attack it it's very critical that if it's your Post-it note, Bob, all right, you need to participate in getting that Post-it note into the documentation of the process, and it's really empowering at the Bob level, right, the desk level, or the people actually doing the work. They need to be involved in that, and I'm a big proponent of understanding the process, but also education.
Right.
And empower. Education is empowering on how and the whys of why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Understand why. All right. Because I've always done it. I've always had this Post-it note with this data point. And that's what I do. Well, what if you're on vacation? Obviously, okay, that's a bottleneck. All right. And if it's just a Post-it note, so let them really teach them and enable them to understand the whys, and then give them the options. All right. So and actually value their input because they are they need to have the participation in the solution, and you do that through the empowerment and education.
So and so my first job was working in my in-laws law firm. So I've always appreciated attorneys, and sometimes attorneys have said they're surprised when I say I'm really thankful for the attorney friendships that I have. They say, I've never heard that when people talk about me as an attorney. I said, but I do. And one of the things I appreciate about them, Joe, is, and they've taught me a lot about what they call the discussion fact pattern or just a fact pattern. And it's really understanding those details of what happened, why it happened, who was involved. It's all those details. For them, it represents opportunities for collaboration and understanding all the what's that are happening with people and the possible ways they can help as a comprehensive legal guide beyond just this one thing that's a key priority. And I think about the fact pattern when I think about how sometimes when we're really working hard to please customers and that we're working hard, especially like the top 10 client list. You got these big customers and you really care about them, but they have certain demands on you. And you say, well, we've made this accommodation to win this big relationship, to bag the elephant, as they say. And if you bag the elephant 3 to 10 times, that's pretty cool, right? So the company's really valuable. You've got a great reputation. You've got great top 10 clients that you're really proud to talk about them. And you're thankful for them. At the same time, they've kind of placed a burden on you because in your interest in accommodating them, you've got now 10 somewhat unique processes because top client number 1 wants it this way. They've got their own kind of protocols or things, expectations, and client number 2 is another one. And you've never actually stopped to say, I wonder if there's a better way to unify this, and how could we engage with the client, not to say, oh, we don't like your way, we're going to abandon it, but well, why is this important to you? And how does this really, when we give this to you, how do you use it? Or what does it mean to you? And in doing that, you're actually learning more about your customers. They can be a source of innovation for you, and then you can standardize those 10 relationships at least somewhat more than they are now. So it's not 10 different workflows. It's actually one that's combined a little bit, and now it's not like bucket 1, bucket 2, bucket 3, but because that's what makes people scared of technology. It's like, now I've got this like virtual phone book thing. That's not helpful. At least I had my own phone book. Now it's everybody's phone book, and I want to look at all the phone book, right? For those who know what that is. So let's talk about what we can do to engage the client, or maybe look differently and say, well, how can we ask questions about how they do what they do with our information or our service or product, and then bring that back together to unify the process as well.
Absolutely. So, but first, did I hear correctly that your in-laws are lawyers? They have a law firm?
They invited me to clean up the law library. So updating books was easy, so I listened a lot more. I didn't have to do that much work.
I imagine there's a lot of stories and battle scars just from that relationship, but we're not here for that.
Yeah, so, right. Just update the books and go home.
Yeah. Very good,
Right.
very good.
Yeah.
But no, coming back around in those different clients, and that fact finding, all right? Those are the whys behind it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And going back to, all right, our process is providing the what to them. All right. We're in charge of the how. All right.
Right.
But if we don't know the whys of our clients and what and on the other side of it, how they're using our what's, all right, well then we get very siloed. And to your point, all right, that's inefficient,
right?
And it's breaking down those barriers, all right. One, from a client perspective, we as an organization, all right, whatever business we have, we're more than just delivering that widget from a widget factory so they can use that widget.
Right.
We're providing value, and that value adds, and we need to make sure that that's always married up with the clients. But if you understand the whys of each one of these clients, then you find the commonalities and the similarities, and that you become siloed in how you're delivering because we're too quick to answer the question that they're asking or their needs without really understanding the whys behind it. Okay, so it's that digging deeper. All right, once we have those data points, that more information, then we find commonalities, and that's how we become a more efficient organization.
And what I found just this week when we started getting into this conversation with people, it becomes not breaking down silos, but inviting collaboration. And it's really fun when you actually, my first client who taught me this, her name was Hope. Really, that's her actual name. And I say her name is Hope because, Joe, when we were implementing technology, she delivered the news the same way, whether it was a great job or something you missed or something you could have done better. It was the same tone of voice. It was like, she was like, a really good mom who said, look, I'm going to tell you the way it is either way. It's not going to be too high in the celebration or too low in the criticism. And it was that kind of truth. And what I found is in this conversation, what we can do is, number one, we're actually kind of learning more about customers rather than just pleasing them and fulfilling them and meeting deadlines. Like it's the logistics conversation, right? Like, let's just get it to the place. It's like, well, tell me about what you're trying to achieve here, and is this a repeated thing? Is there a system we're building here, or is this just a one-time event? And when you get to know these clients and what they're doing with it and how they use this information, you actually not just break down the silos, but you invite collaboration among your team that didn't happen. Kind of like the team among the law firm of everybody in their specialties who don't know that, we could be collaborating and maybe helping each other in 3 times better ways. And it's that same way. It isn't about breaking silos. It's almost creating the pathways of collaboration within your company, because you're like, it isn't client team 1 or client team 2. It's actually us. And if we can just talk about this process and really think about standardizing it for the client's benefit and for us, we don't have to give up anything here. And man, we can just eliminate those Post-it notes, and we can find ways to help each other to be more productive and achieve the better outcomes, right? So it's not like working longer hours and right? Challenging each other, like my client's better than yours.
And that's where technology has always been in play,
Yeah.
and will continue to be in play because it's that collaboration, it's that identification, it's all those data points, all right, that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
All right, technology helps us collaborate and collaborate faster. Being able to identify those data points, put all these thousands of different data points together. That's what we use technology for, and it's becoming easier and easier every day.
Yeah.
All right. Especially this is the age of AI.
Yeah,
All right. And we're getting bombarded with more and more tools every day. So it's still incumbent upon the business leaders, business owners, but everyone who owns the process, from the top down and bottom up, needs to understand the technology tools, and the purpose for them at their organization and how that fits into everything. Because it's incumbent upon us to get better at what we do. Right? We're not getting better. The competitors are getting better, and we don't want to be out of jobs. So
let's give people a takeaway here.
Yeah.
Some people say start with why. Maybe start with how.
Yes.
How we actually do this, as opposed to how Joe does it and Bob does it. How do we do it? And maybe how could we do it better? Or maybe how do we actually do it for our clients? And then recognize those nuance differences between clients. Start with how, and then tell me what's next.
So the hows, and then the whys come.
Then the whys,
All
right?
Because if we start with the whys, then you're going to be chasing those Post-it notes.
Chasing the post, or putting them all over a wall, which can be intimidating.
All over
right?
the place. No,
Yeah.
It's the how. So you got to get the hows all together.
Yeah.
Then you can go into the whys, and that's where now that I understand the whys, we can improve the hows. All right, and through technology, yes, but a lot of times when you get the hows all laid out, you're like, well, we understand the whys for the client, but why are we doing this step, which is a person, all right, making decisions where we don't, the customer doesn't value that. The customer really values the decision we make at this level, all right, where we're taking a consultative approach versus just question and answers that we can build a chatbot for, all right.
Right.
So the focus of our talent, our people, our domain experience needs to be always driving the value of the client, and that's why really breaking down the how and understanding the whys. That's how we improve it.
So start with how to understand how we do it, understand what they're doing with it, understand why we've done it this way. Is it a tradition that we were just kind of scrappy and now we're going to try to be more happy together? And so, and don't forget the client in doing this, because like my friend Hope, giving you the honest feedback, in fact, inviting this conversation might even help you to recognize how you're better than you even think you are right now. Because you kind of assume it. Sometimes you say we've been in business for a certain number of years, and I know that 25, 55, 75 years is great, but it's really how you do what you do. And that might not only help you build a better process, it might help you recognize how you really are better than those other people who supposedly compete with you. So,
Absolutely.
So start with how, start the conversations inside the company. Don't forget the clients, because they're your collaborative partners. And think about the technology and the conversation as collaboration, not the revolution of technology. It's the evolution of the conversation and people. Thanks, Joe.
Very well said. Thank you, Bob.
Talk to you next week. Thanks.